The lion waited 15 years for him. What happened will break your heart. The first time Miguel saw Aslan, the lion was only 6 months old and fit perfectly in his arms. He was a golden ball of soft fur that purred like a giant cat, with amber eyes that seemed to understand every word Miguel whispered to him. He had arrived at the wildlife sanctuary on the outskirts of Medellin after being confiscated from illegal traffickers, malnourished and terrified. Miguel, then a 25-year-old biologist full of dreams and passion for conservation, volunteered to care for the cub. "This little one needs special care," the sanctuary director and Dr. Ramirez told him while watching Miguel feed the lion with a bottle. "He can't be released into the wild. He never learned to hunt, and his early contact with humans makes him dependent on us." Miguel nodded, never imagining that those words would mark the beginning of a story that would change his life forever. During the first years, Miguel and Aslan were inseparable. Every morning, the young biologist arrived at the sanctuary before dawn to feed the lion, clean his enclosure, and spend hours playing with him. Aslan had grown into a majestic lion with a golden mane, but to Miguel he remained that vulnerable cub who had come into his arms. They had unique rituals. Miguel would sing songs while brushing his fur, and Aslan would respond with soft roars that sounded more like conversation than threat. Sanctuary visitors were fascinated by the relationship between man and lion. Miguel patiently explained to them about conservation, about the dangers of illegal animal trafficking, and about how Aslan represented both the beauty and tragedy of wildlife in captivity. The lion, for his part, seemed to understand his role as ambassador for his species, remaining calm and majestic during educational visits. But life has cruel ways of changing course when we least expect it. 3 years into working with Aslan, Miguel received an opportunity he couldn't refuse: a full scholarship to study a doctorate in wildlife conservation in South Africa, at one of the world's most prestigious universities. It was the dream of his professional life, the opportunity to contribute to conservation on a large scale, to make a real difference in the world. The decision tore him apart inside. On one hand, there was Aslan, who had grown up seeing Miguel as his companion, his brother, his family. On the other, there was the opportunity of his lifetime, 5 years of study that would make him a world expert in feline conservation. Dr. Ramirez encouraged him to go. "Miguel, you have to think about the big picture. What you learn there will benefit thousands of animals like Aslan. It's your professional duty." The night before leaving, Miguel spent hours in Aslan's enclosure. The lion, as if sensing something, showed more affection than ever, rubbing his enormous head against Miguel's chest, purring with that deep vibration the young man had come to love. "I'll come back, brother," Miguel whispered, stroking the golden mane. "I promise I'll come back. It'll only be 5 years, and when I return, we'll work together to save your species." Aslan looked at him with those amber eyes that seemed ancient and wise, as if he understood every word. The trip to South Africa was transformative for Miguel. He studied with the world's best experts, participated in lion reintroduction projects, developed innovative techniques for managing large cats in captivity, and published research that was internationally recognized. Every achievement, every discovery, every moment of success was tinged with memories of Aslan. Miguel wrote letters to Dr. Ramirez asking about the lion, sent photos of the African lions he studied, and meticulously planned his return. But 5 years became 7 when he was offered the chance to lead a revolutionary conservation project in Kenya. Then it became 10 years when an international foundation hired him to develop conservation programs throughout Africa. Miguel had become a world authority on the subject, had saved hundreds of lions, had established nature reserves, had changed conservation policies. His work was crucial, urgent, necessary. Just a little more, he told himself each year. I just need to finish this project, and then I can return to Aslan, Doctor. Ramirez's letters became less frequent, and when they arrived, the news about Aslan was always the same. He was well, healthy, but had changed. The lion had become more solitary, less interactive with caretakers. He would refuse food for days when new volunteers arrived, as if hoping to recognize a familiar voice, a known scent. Other caretakers said Aslan always seemed to be waiting for something or someone. It was 15 years, 15 long years in which Miguel became Dr. Miguel Santos, worldwide recognized for his work in feline conservation. He had saved endangered species, had educated thousands of people, had changed the world in tangible and measurable ways. But every night, before sleeping, he thought of Aslan. Every lion's roar he heard in the African savannas reminded him of that soft purr of a golden cub in his arms. The call came on a December morning. Dr. Ramirez, now an elderly man with a trembling voice, gave him the news Miguel had feared for years. Aslan was dying. At 15 years old, the lion had developed aggressive cancer that wasn't responding to treatment. The veterinarians gave him perhaps a few weeks to live. "You have to come, Miguel, Doctor." Ramirez told him with a broken voice. "He hasn't eaten for days. He just lies there looking toward the sanctuary entrance, as if he's waiting. The caretakers say he's waiting for you." Miguel cancelled everything. International conferences, foundation meetings, projects that had waited months of planning. Nothing mattered more than getting to Colombia, than returning to Aslan before it was too late. The 24-hour flight felt like an eternity. Miguel looked out the window, remembering every moment he had spent with the lion, every game, every caress, every whispered promise. When he arrived at the sanctuary, it had completely changed. What was once a small facility with few animals was now a modern and extensive conservation center. Miguel barely recognized the place, but when he approached Aslan's enclosure, his heart stopped. The lion was lying under the shade of a tree, his mane now grayish and less abundant, his body noticeably thinner. But when he heard Miguel's footsteps, when he caught his scent carried by the wind, Aslan lifted his head with an effort that seemed superhuman. His amber eyes, though dimmed by illness, lit up with immediate and profound recognition. Miguel slowly approached the fence. "Hello, brother," he whispered with a broken voice. "I'm sorry I took so long." What happened next broke the hearts of everyone present. Aslan slowly got up, with painful but determined movements, and walked toward the fence. When he was close to Miguel, the lion began to emit a sound no one had heard in years, that deep and melodious purr he used to make as a cub. It was a sound of recognition, of joy, of unconditional love. Miguel extended his hand through the fence and stroked Aslan's head, feeling how the lion leaned against his palm with the same trust as 15 years ago. Tears ran down his face as he whispered, "I'm here, brother. I'm here with you." During the following days, Miguel didn't leave Aslan's enclosure. He slept in a chair next to the fence, ate there, worked from there. The lion, who had refused food for weeks, began eating again, as if Miguel's presence had given him back the will to live. But both knew it was temporary. That time was running out. One morning, while Miguel sang one of the songs he used to sing when Aslan was a cub, the lion approached the fence and put his enormous paw on Miguel's hand. They looked into each other's eyes for long minutes, in a moment of silent communication that transcended words. In those amber eyes, Miguel saw forgiveness, unconditional love, and something that seemed like a farewell. That same afternoon, Aslan lay down under his favorite tree and closed his eyes. Miguel was there, whispering words of love and gratitude when the great lion took his last breath. His departure was as serene as his wait had been, dignified, patient, full of love. Aslan's funeral was simple but moving. The sanctuary staff, many of whom had cared for the lion for years, gathered to say goodbye. Miguel spoke a few words about loyalty, about unconditional love, about how an animal had taught a human about true devotion. But the story didn't end there. That night, while Miguel was organizing the belongings in his old office, he found something that left him breathless, a diary that Dr. Ramirez had kept during all those years. In it, he had meticulously recorded Aslan's behavior day after day. The pages revealed a truth that broke Miguel's heart. During the 15 years of his absence, Aslan had maintained an invariable ritual. Every morning, he would go to the sanctuary entrance and wait. He would wait for hours, looking at the road where Miguel used to arrive. When it got dark, he would return to his enclosure, but the next day he would repeat the routine. Caretakers had tried to break this pattern, offering toys, companionship, activities. But Aslan always returned to his waiting post. For 15 years, through rain and drought, on suffocatingly hot days and cold nights, the lion had waited. He had waited with unshakable faith that his human brother would fulfill his promise to return. The diary also revealed something else. In the last months, when illness began to weaken him, Aslan had intensified his vigil. As if he knew his time was running out, he spent more hours waiting, looking toward the horizon with a determination that moved everyone who saw him. Miguel then understood the magnitude of what he had lost. He had not only lost 15 years with his most loyal companion, but had underestimated the depth of the bond they shared. Aslan hadn't forgotten him, hadn't moved on, hadn't found comfort in other caretakers. He had chosen waiting as a form of love, had turned fidelity into an art, had demonstrated that some bonds transcend time and distance. The revelation changed him forever. Miguel realized that in his quest to save the species, he had abandoned the individual who needed him most. In his eagerness to make a global difference, he had broken a personal promise that was sacred. Professional success, international recognition, revolutionary projects, everything felt empty compared to those amber eyes that had waited for 15 years. He decided to stay in Colombia. He used his international experience to transform the sanctuary into a world-class center, but this time without sacrificing personal relationships for professional ambition. He established a special program for animals in situations similar to Aslan's, focusing not only on their physical well-being, but on their emotional and social needs. Miguel never completely forgave himself for those 15 lost years, but he channeled his pain into something constructive. He wrote a book about Aslan's story that became an international bestseller, not only for its message about conservation, but for its deep reflection on loyalty, love, and the consequences of our decisions. Every year, on the anniversary of Aslan's death, Miguel organizes a ceremony at the sanctuary. It's not just to remember the lion, but to honor all animals that wait, that trust, that love unconditionally. It's a reminder that behind every conservation statistic are individuals with feelings, memories, and hearts capable of devotion that often surpasses human devotion. Aslan's story became legend in the conservation world, not for being the story of an exceptional lion, but for being the story of a love that defied time, distance, and circumstances. It's the story of how an animal taught a human about the true nature of fidelity, about the real cost of our ambitions, and about the fact that some bonds are so sacred they deserve to be honored above everything else. Miguel learned that not all conservation heroes are in African savannas or in international foundation offices. Some are waiting patiently under a tree, with amber eyes full of faith, reminding us that true love knows no deadlines, doesn't understand professional careers, doesn't surrender to absence. True love simply waits, and in that, waiting finds its own form of eternity. Aslan's grave at the sanctuary bears a simple plaque, Aslan, master of fidelity, guardian of promises, example of unconditional love. He waited 15 years because he knew it was worth waiting for. And below, in smaller letters, the words Miguel had whispered so many times, "I'll come back, brother. I promise I'll come back." Although he arrived too late to fulfill his promise in life, Miguel fulfilled it in another way, ensuring that Aslan's story would live forever, inspiring others to value not only species conservation, but the sanctity of individual bonds that form the very fabric of life. In his silent and devoted wait, Aslan had taught the most important lesson of all, that true love transcends time and that some promises deserve to be honored beyond life itself.